What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today is day 2 of our read through the Book of Arson, book 1 of the Arson saga. We are celebrating Arson's 10-year anniversary. My fire starter is turning 10. It's so sad and awesome. I'm feeling all nostalgic, getting all the feels. So today we are running through chapters 3 and 4. Like I said in the previous video, feel free to follow along or just close your eyes and let me take you away to a better place than what we're probably experiencing right now. Hope everybody's staying safe out there, and let's get to it. 3. He was lost again. No matter how hard Arson screamed and fought to get out, he was stuck. Stretched out before him was a picture, moving slowly, of 2 young boys. He followed them down the street, the hum of the world surrounding them. Tall, condemning lights set against a dark heaven. Hopeful musicians and city merchants gambling away life's trifles and gifts, eager to make a quick buck. But no one could see him. No one could hear him. The boys exchanged comic books, arguing about whose favorite hero was best and how they sympathized with the villains of the stories, those the world called monsters. Arson reached out his hand to touch one of them on the shoulder, but his fingers pierced right through the faded flesh, out the other side as if the boy were not there at all. They continued walking and talking. Arson could see it, though, impossible to miss. The thing Danny was promising would change the way they did tricks. What he said would initiate their evolution from kids to bigger kids nobody messed with. It would be just like the show Jackass, he promised. The item was tucked away in Danny's back pocket, sticking out as he danced across their concrete stage, closer and closer to the night's violent performance. Was Arson supposed to feel his heart beating? He tried waving his hands, begged his body to scream louder. As he turned to his left, Arson noticed a cab moving past, braking farther ahead. His eyes moved beneath the glaze in awe toward the scene about to explode. Can I save them? No. Why? You are not awake. Sweat trickled off his brow. The charm of curiosity and nervousness called him to the scene. Images wilted away and folded back. Timeless. Careless. And then he saw it, a spark in the distance. He didn't dare follow closely. No, he'd run again. That was all he could do. Don't think, don't breathe, just run. As fast as he could. Arson's eyes peeled back. He was awake. Sweat cradled his body in puddles as his chest rose and fell. His spine curled up into itself, and he started to shake. It's time for breakfast, he heard from below. Grandma's voice must have brought him to life again. It was Wednesday, which meant scrambled eggs and cheese served with crispy bacon, 2 slices of rye, and birch beer. Blinking, he took pleasure in what might come if only he could gather the strength to make it out of bed and downstairs. In moments he was clean, but lethargically moving down the steps that led into the old-fashioned kitchen. It was Grandma's way of keeping the past alive. She was dressed, as always, in her traditional apron and standing beside the morning feast. Good morning, she said in a soothing voice. How'd you sleep? Arson found a seat quickly, reached for his fork, and drew the first scoop of eggs to his mouth, not saying a word. Well, love, do you feel like talking about what's on your mind? She set the cup of tea down on the table. Good morning, he finally said, lifting his eyes, but only for a second. He couldn't tell her it was happening again. She'd despise him for it. She wouldn't understand sweating so much it ached, or hands burning without touching a stove, a fire, nothing. She had never seemed to get it before, and now it would only call out her hatred once more. No, not today. Grandma spent several moments absorbed in her newspaper. It used to bother him that the newspaper didn't change. Arson had never believed that reading the same sad news morning after morning could be healthy, but he refused to fight with her about it. No use. She looked at him now and then during breakfast as she turned its faded, crinkled pages. Where's Grandpa? Arson said, hoping that talking about his grandfather might take the attention off him for a bit. He's out buying cigarettes, she said. Marlboro Lights. They're his favorite. It is a filthy habit, though, if I do say so. Arson took in the moment. He stared into her gray eyes and saw some warmth. The wrinkles on her cheeks shaped a pleasant smile. You know him, she continued. Always up before the sun. Most nights I wonder if the man even sleeps. He's such a hard worker. You know, you might take some lessons from your granddaddy, love. The glow he saw evaporated. Are you ready to talk about how you slept? I know you didn't sleep well. Heavens, you kept me up nearly half the night. Whatever do you dream about, boy? I'm fine, Grandma, it's nothing, Arson whispered, gulping down the entire glass of birch beer, trying to avoid the subject. Grandma got up and placed the bottle of birch beer in front of him. If you don't want me to pry, I won't. I try to care about you, but you don't ever open up. I get so tired of your nonsense, wretch! Suddenly he saw her recoil. Arson could feel her eyes slithering up and down his frame. Then she grasped her cup of tea as daintily as ever and took a sip. In a blink, she was changed. How's breakfast, love? He couldn't understand how she did it, how she morphed instantly. Arson sighed and brushed off the rude remark before replying, Delicious, with as much phony gratitude as he could muster. He found himself staring at random things around the room, anything to avoid her examination. She didn't mean those things she said, he was sure. He hoped. Unscrewing the soda cap, he listened for the gasp of air escaping. Then he filled his glass with more of the fizzy beverage. He proceeded to down another full glass, every moment more stifling than the last. Thank you, Grandma. This is the breakfast of champions. Oh, it's nothing, love. Getting up from his seat, Arson belched. Excuse me, he said, covering his mouth in an effort to conceal his stomach's grumble. Suddenly, out of the corner of his eye, he glimpsed a spinning plate coming toward him. It whirled and turned in the air so fast he barely had the chance to duck. Startled, Arson dropped to the floor in a panic as the plate aimed at him smashed against a wall and shattered on the tile. Grandma, what are you doing? Let that be the last time you welcome foul behavior into this house. You're not some gutter trash from the streets. I expect better manners in the future. In a flash, her lips stretched back into a smile, and she knelt down beside him, picking up the broken fragments off the floor. Arson reached for some pieces. He could see her face change again. Leave it for Grandma, Arson, she said. You're going to be late for work. Lord knows those crazy folks love their ice cream as soon as the cock crows. Get going. Leave the fixing to me. Confused, he walked outside. He could feel the morning creeping in, the taste of dew sticking to the inner flesh of his cheek. Another day, he sighed. Casting his gaze out against Lake Pocono, he groaned with melancholy delight and caught a glimpse of the ripples harmonizing in the wake of restless fishermen. Arson walked along the rocky path that Grandpa had created, time had weathered, and erosion had ruined, before reaching the main stretch of road. Like always, nightfall would come, and the same road would usher him in again, back to the hell he knew as home. He heard the sound of Mandy's voice, like music, but softer. Hey, Arson, she said, walking into Toby's with another mindless clone. Traded the last model in for a new one, huh? Arson grinned. Anything interesting this one can do? Amidst the flurry of people, Mandy exchanged glances with him, not entirely sure what the comment meant. He pretended to read her mind and quickly gave her 2 scoops of double chocolate chip ice cream in a sugar cone and littered it with chocolate shots. After smiling a few times, Arson reluctantly turned to face paying customers. Demands from impatient mothers dying to put something into their kids' greedy mouths came at him, as if each ricocheted off the last. Day in and day out, Arson noticed how each mother varied in the amount of her affection toward her child, most far too agitated by the time they stepped inside the parlor to be bothered with any nonsense from an ice cream scooper like him. So Arson often studied them, observing the way some moms reacted toward their own children, and then he watched how they reacted with others, even complete strangers. In one moment, they were as lethal as black widows, and the next as carefree as butterflies. It made him wonder what his mother would have been like if... Before the thought could put a period at the end of itself, Mandy and the new clone were gone. He was unable to wave goodbye as they made their retreat past a swarm of frustrated house mothers. She and her friend took the free ice cream cone and escaped without even offering to pay. Not that he would have charged them. Mandy was very dear to him. Arson knew better than anyone that love was rarely fair, that just because you wished away a feeling didn't mean it left you. And he was now sure that no matter what she did or could ever do, he had no choice but to remain corruptibly in love with her. 4. Grandma stormed into Arson's bedroom with a fury. The sound of the door bashing into the wall disturbed him half to death. "Are you some kind of pervert?" she yelled, smacking his face with a newspaper. She must have heard him through the walls. "What's the matter with you, wretch? I raised you better." She laced each blow with sick pleasure, a mix of disdain and contempt. Arson wasn't sure which he was more afraid of, her eyes or the raw knuckles silencing all feeling within him. What had he done? For the longest time, Arson had believed it was normal. Other kids did it. What else could it be? They were just thoughts, after all. Thoughts that he let turn into something more, something passionate. He liked the way they felt, the way he imagined a girl might touch him, kiss him, even love him, if ever they got close enough. It didn't feel wrong. He didn't ask for these thoughts, they just came, and he didn't know what to do with them. But the more Grandma screamed, the more she sank her harsh resolve into his skin, the more the thoughts began to abandon him. It had all been a mistake. "I'm sorry," he whimpered. But she didn't seem to care. If only she'd listened to him. She grabbed Arson by the head and struck him once again. "Those impure thoughts will send you straight to hell, you little demon." Another blow sent bits of black ink and white paper falling to the floor like filthy snowflakes. When he was younger, kids ridiculed him, as if he were some abnormal freak because he didn't do it. Didn't even really understand what it was for so long. Bragging school-ground punks with their pierced ears and ripped jean jackets exiled him in the bus lines time and time again, played tricks on him. He used to despise them for their violence and sick jokes. The last days before summer were the worst. With heat so thick, teachers focused more on when the bell would ring than noticing the taunts and crimes of adolescent boys. If they didn't see it, it didn't matter. The tormenting culprits found little to fear in suspension anyway. To them, it was all just sport. Arson hated how sheltered Grandma kept him, entombed in mere existence. She never had talks with him about his body, about the natural and unnatural changes, the thoughts, the fevers, the shakes, not quite cold or hot, just miserable. Arson often wondered if this happened because of his dreams, angry dreams. But it was Grandma who constantly warned him against getting angry. That was unacceptable, and the result of such disobedience would bring devastating consequences. She threatened to leave him forever. "I never thought you'd have the nerve to do something like that in your granddaddy's house," Grandma said, spitting. "Arson Gable, you've shamed me. You've shamed your mother, God rest her soul. Look at you." He did, staring down at the pants around his ankles. "Animals don't even do that, wretch." Out of the dark came her hard knuckles, sinking into his belly, laced with fury and disgust. "I'm so sorry, Grant," he sobbed. Grandma threw the paper at him. "Not yet, but you will be. I bet you fornicate to those smut magazines as well. You probably do. Is that why you touch yourself? Because of that filth? Hiding them right under my nose, thinking I'll never find them." She searched but found nothing. Arson cowered underneath her shadow, so weak, rejected, ashamed, especially to the one who claimed to love him most. "You ruined my paper. You know how I feel about my newspaper." "Don't interrupt me, pig!" She fixed her glasses, scanned the room, and disappeared momentarily. With a towel in her hand, Grandma returned to find Arson on his knees. "Clean yourself up," she demanded, and threw him a rag. "You'll have to think about what you did." Grandma left the room and shut the door. Arson could hear the key sliding into place and then twisting enough to lock him inside. Every click and turn sounded like mad voices telling him of the punishment and separation to come. "You're just like your daddy," he heard her whisper behind the door. And that concludes chapter 4. You made it through day 2, friends. Please stick around. Again, like and share this video. Tell people about it. We need some new fans. Thank you guys so much for checking it out. Come back tomorrow. Thanks.